All right. So, as I like to say with these things, as long as everything is working the way that it should be working, we are now live. So, hello and welcome to everyone who is watching the Written Melanin channel. Wherever this day may have found you, I'm so glad that you are here. And it is Tuesday. It is 10 o'clock or very close to it. And we are here for another Melanin Chat. And as you guys can see, it is just me today. Aja, God bless her, has a quote that she has to do for her hauling. So, in case you guys don't know, Audra started a new company. It's called R5 Hauling. It's junk hauling in Maryland, and she has a channel for it and everything on YouTube. So if you're into that, for sure, check it out. I will drop a link down in the description box, so I don't know why I don't have one already. But that being said, we are here to do some chitting and chatting and talking of things. So that being said, shout out to everyone who is already in the chat. Ash is here. Ben is here. La is here. Hello. Good morning. Thank you guys for making it. And I will go ahead and say this in the beginning. If you're here, go ahead and tap the like button because it doesn't hurt you and it helps the algorithm. And if you can't stay for the whole thing, you can just come back to your liked playlist and watch the rest of it. So there we go. Also, Bianca is here. Good morning. And I'm glad that you are back in the chat. It's nice to see you. And Vina is here as well. Good morning, everyone. So, I'm going to give everybody a couple minutes to get in, get situated, get comfortable, grab your tea, your coffee, whatever it is that you need to get. And as always, if you guys check the chat, if there are things that you want me to discuss in this episode of the Melanin Chat, put it in the topic suggestions and we will definitely be talking about it. But we got a couple things to discuss about Trad Pub this morning. So I'm going to talk about that first. Also, author Kate McCoy is here. Hello, good morning, welcome. Also, while everybody's coming in and we're still at the beginning of this, I'm going to remind you guys that if you would like to join the after chat that's going to be after this, to go ahead and sign up for the Patreon at patreon.com/writtenmelanin. That way you can get the grown folks chat after this one. So, also, Tatiana is here. Good morning. Also, I need y'all to know that I'm so excited for Tatiana to be in the chat because she's always lurking. And I know she'd be watching, but she just don't be in a chat. So I'm really excited that she's in the chat this morning. Also want to point out that Tatiana was on the channel with me last week to talk about world building for the AuthorTube Writing Conference. So if you guys missed that video, for sure, check it out. It was really good, honestly. Tatiana is so smart. She's so brilliant and her book is so good. And we had a good conversation. I think it was good. I think it was great. So for sure, get into that. But that being said, there are several things that I want to touch on this morning. So we are going to go ahead and get into this melanin spotlight for today. And as always, y'all know with this melanin spotlight, I am not Audra. I do not have the book. And but I do want to say that this book was sent to me. So I do have an arc of it and I am trying to make my way through it, but y'all know how I read books. So take that with a grain of salt. But this is a middle grade and it's about family. And so far it seems pretty cute, but I'm be real with you. I'm only like 4% of the way through the book because I've been doing other things. I just been doing other things. So, but that being said, the description for the book reads, Sky Nixon's world changed forever when her dad went on the run with her brother Finn. It's been 4 years without Finn's jokes, 4 years without her father's old soul music, and 4 years of Sky filling in as Rent-a-Finn on his MIA birthdays for their mom. Finn's birthday is always difficult, but at least Sky has her best friends, Reese and Jax, to lean on, even if Reese has started acting too cool for them. But this year is different because after Finn's birthday, they get a call that he's finally been found. Tall, quiet, and secretive, this Finn is nothing like the brother she grew up with. He keeps taking late-night phone calls and losing his new expensive gifts, and he doesn't seem to remember any of their inside jokes or secrets. As Sky tries to make sense of it all through the lens of her old Polaroid camera, she starts to wonder, could this Finn be someone else entirely? And if everyone else has changed, does it mean that Sky has to change too? So, this book comes out in October, October 22nd of this year, and it sounds like kind of a cute coming of age, figuring out where you fit in the world type of middle grade. So as you guys know, there will be a link down in the description box below. Again, the title of the book is The Shape of Lost Things by Sarah Everett. I don't know if I actually said that, but it was on the screen. So The Shape of Lost Things by Sarah Everett comes out in October. So it sounds pretty cute. And like I said, I'm about 4% of the way into it. And it's reading pretty cute so far if, Lost Brothers is your thing. But yeah. All right. So that being said, let's talk about a couple of things. So if you guys are in the after chat, then you have already you've already heard most of this. However, there are a couple of things that okay, y'all know I can't do two things at one time. I'm so sorry. But there are a couple of things that we were talking about this week in the after chat that just kind of had me thinking like, wow, Trad Pub is kind of held up as this, oh, this is the bar. This is the mythical place that you are trying to reach as an author. This is where you are trying to go. Once you have made it into Trad Pub, you have made it as an author, right? That's kind of how it's held up on the internet. There have been a lot of, I'll say, eye-opening moments, right? Where people are like, probably not all it's cracked up to be, right? And I do want to say that in, I guess, one of my previous Melanin Chats, I did kind of go in on Trad Pub a little bit. So caveat to everything to say that everything is not for everybody and you have to pick your own path, right? So that's my disclaimer for this episode. Like, I have opinions, but keep in mind that they are my opinions and it's just how I see things. And for sure, do what's right for you, and all paths to publishing and achieving your dreams are valid. So that being said, it was brought to my attention because y'all know Vina, shout out to Vina, right? Ms. Woman, the color reader, because she's the one who be telling me all this stuff. Apparently there was this shelves in the city thing that publishers did. And I want to say it was like HarperCollins and Avon Books and I think another publisher, right? And the whole premise, the whole idea of this outing activity, whatever, was they got a bunch of TikTokers, book talkers together, and they flew them out to New York, and they did bookish things, like they went to different bookstores and they took pictures and things of it, and it's just kind of like, okay, cool, promo, that's great, but as I was reading through like the comments and like people reacting to the actual event or whatever, it's kind of like, but what was the event for? And come to find out, it wasn't to promote any type of book or any type of release or even like certain books at the publishers that were like doing this. None of that. And it was just kind of like, okay, so what was the point? And as I've been going down this rabbit hole, trying to figure out, okay, what's happening, what's going on, no one else seems to understand what the point of it was either. And so as I'm going through looking at the screenshots and stuff that other people have accumulated, and it's like they spent $300,000 to $500,000 on this event to like fly people to New York, and the whole weekend was just like all expenses were covered for these book talkers. Like apparently there was even like a tattoo artist that was paid for while they were there. So it's just like these people just went to New York and were just like buying books and reading books and going out to eat and having the time of their lives. Sounds like a great vacation, but it's also like, what was the point, right? And then follow that up with, you have this event or whatever where you're paying for everything. And then you also have like massive layoffs. So it's just kind of like priorities. What? Like, how are you going to pay for these influencers to come out and do all these things, and then you just straight up cut your staff of people who are actually doing work? And Vina's in the chat. She said it was HarperCollins and their imprints. So it's just kind of like, what was the purpose? Also, Roussel is here. Hello, welcome, love. But as I was sitting here thinking about it, it just kind of hit me because one of the Twitter threads or whatever, and there's a link under the relevant links in the description box. I actually remembered to add it this time. But she was talking about or she mentioned basically in her thread or whatever about how the TikTok, like there was no rhyme or reason to anything essentially, and that the whole event was to create connections between these influencers and the publishing company. And that just kind of got my brain rolling because it's just kind of like, wow, we are really in an age where everything has shifted so drastically because of like the internet and influencers and everything else, that it's like it's becoming more and more apparently clear that Trap Hub has really no more idea of how to like really market and sell a book than indie authors do. And it's just interesting because it kind of feeds into this trend of the really successful authors that you see in a lot of these newer announcements, I guess, started out as indie authors. And they started out as being like, oh, I already have a following, right? Or even the whole conversation with like Bindery, right? Where they're hiring influencers to be the face of the imprint. And it's just kind of like, how do I put this nicely? I don't know. I feel like the more I watch it, the more I'm just like, oh, y'all are really making this up as you go along. And the whole pull for Trap Pub for a lot of authors is this idea that you get this team behind you who's experienced and they know what they're doing and they're going to help you publish and sell your book, right? But it's just like, if they don't really know what they're doing, and they're making it up as they go along. I think the only difference is they have a name behind them to help actually make these connections or sell these books, right? And I'm not gonna say I'm floored, but it's just like, the more I learn, the more I'm like, I'm not gonna say there's no benefit to Trap Pub because I don't feel that way, but I am thinking like, I think the benefit of Trap Pub is waning on like a daily basis, because it's also like TikTokers, as she point the girl, I don't even know her name. Hold on. Sade, I think that's how you say her name. She pointed out in her thread that these TikTokers don't, it's not like they have like a solid following, right? Like traditional media is the way it was phrased in the tweet. But when you really think about it, it's like with traditional following, it's not a news station, it's not a newspaper, it's not like it has a built-in followership like these influencers, especially on TikTok, where your videos aren't necessarily shown to your followers and they're more shown to people to try to get them to see your content, and algorithms are always changing. It's not like a built-in audience. So it's interesting that they would invest so much money into people who have the numbers, but those numbers can fluctuate, they can change. And then I was talking to actually Tatiana about this the other day, and we were just like, as indie authors, we have like our own connections that we've built up over time of like people we can reach out to actually like read and market our books and stuff, right? But it's just like both she and I have been doing this for a while, right? We'll say 5 years roughly, right? Give or take. And it's just kind of like the people that we knew in the beginning aren't necessarily making content anymore, and that changes so frequently. So it's kind of crazy that they would spend this much money to fly out influencers when it's just kind of like, people change all the time. They are not guaranteed to keep creating content. They are not guaranteed to continue to have a platform. Like when I think of people who really have longevity, most of them are on YouTube, and I can't think of any TikTokers who are just like, or book talkers who are like, oh yeah, they've been doing this. Like they are true to this. They are not new to this. It's like, no, the platform itself, the popularity of it as far as the book community is new-ish comparatively speaking. And it's just like, I don't know if it's been around long enough to even be like, oh yeah, they have longevity in this, you know? So, and then in addition to that, right, what Vina said in the chat, there's also an increase in mismarketing books, because again, if you're in the if you're in the after chat, we've had this discussion, but there are a startling large amount of authors who are how do I put this? I don't want to be rude, but there's a large subset of authors who are pushing their book one way and setting expectations to be one thing when in reality the book is actually something completely different. And I can think of one book that is definitely on my list for this, but I'm not throwing shade on this particular episode of the Melanin Chat. But if you guys know me, y'all know exactly which book I'm thinking about. Slight aside, y'all know Michael, big hair, light skin, and he's a librarian, but he's not a librarian anymore because people started being really mean to him on the internet. But he still does librarian things and talks about the library and all that. Y'all know exactly who I'm talking about, I'm pretty sure. But anyway, he did a list for June, was it Juneteenth, I want to say, of library books that feature mermaids or whatever. And that book, that book was in the list, and I was just like, yo, I think somebody has to tell him that we have to tell him that there are no mermaids in the book. But either way, point is there are always books that are going to be like, hey, come here for this, and then you're like, yay, and then you get there, you're like, oh wait, where's I was sold lies. Where's the promises? Where are you delivering, oh, what you said that you were going to do? But it's interesting, and I think it's also we're also very much still in this era of one, authors not knowing how to market their book, and so they are mismarketing them, but also a lot of authors writing books that should be written for a different audience, meaning that you have books that are being shoved into YA that really shouldn't be YA and would work way better as an adult book. But for some reason, there's this idea that's perpetuated that the young adult audience is the audience that buys books. No one else buys books like that audience does. So you have to tap into it. You have to reach it. And I'm just like, who told you this? Why? Because I'm like, this could be completely unrelated. And I admit that it could be completely unrelated, but I'm like, isn't adult romance like the best-selling genre? So I'm like, why aren't you just writing an adult book and then shoving some romance into it versus trying to write an adult book and market it to children? I don't know. I just feel like the priorities here are getting really, really, really misconstrued. Let's see here. Ben said Trap Hub is just full of regular people making stuff up just like everyone else. Trap Hub may or may not have more resources to take advantage of. And I think that's the thing. I think that's a thing. The thing where it's just like, I think the only thing Trap Hub has going for it right now is resources. And then I feel like there's also a conversation to be had as Black authors, how many resources you actually get access to when you are an author of color writing. When you are a Black author writing Black books, right? I think that's also the question. Okay. Sorry. I had my tea and I'm trying to drink it while it's hot because usually I have something and then it just sits here until the after chat is over and it's cold. So if you see me sipping, that's why. I think the benefits are dwindling even more for Black authors, especially as more readers are getting tired of the trauma-focused stories they publish by Black authors. You know what? I feel like that is a whole conversation because honestly, I think that is part of the reason why Blood at the Root is as popular as it is, because of how it was marketed as no trauma. And I feel like people are, specifically Black readers, I feel like we are so thirsty and hungry for just books where it's just like, it's not racial trauma, it is not oppression, it's not you are the only Black person in the room, or you are the only one in a very Black space or in a very white space, right? Like, we want stories where we can just exist, and we've been saying this for a long time. And I feel like Blood at the Root capitalized on that marketing in particular. I have seen a couple of reviews where I know that there is trauma in the book, so I think that also falls into what we're talking about the mismarketing, because I think the marketing itself was there is no trauma at all. And it's just like, no, there is trauma, there's just no racial oppression trauma. And I just find that interesting because it's just like, it's like the evidence shows that sells really well, and somehow those are not the books that are picked up and marketed appropriately. And it's just like, it also shows that when you put resources behind the book, it also sells really well. Like, go figure, if you tell people about the book and push the book and get the book in front of people, people will buy it. This is crazy. It's a crazy concept. But yet and still, there are so many Black authors who have to do the legwork themselves. And I'm just like, until that changes, we're really not going to see any difference. But I don't know. At this point, it can't even be like, oh, I feel like the argument of, oh, Black books don't sell. And I'm like, no, they do. You just have to put work into it like every other book. And if you want more books, you have to pay authors something that they can actually live on, just like you do all the other authors that you sign. Maybe Ooh, I was gonna say something really rude. Let me stop. Let me censor myself a little bit this good morning. Also, shout out to Darian and TEB who came in. Hello, welcome. Hope you guys are doing well. Um, it's just we were talking about how Trap Hub they don't get it, the marketing and everything else. Um, wait, hold on. I agree, and I've talked to authors recently about how money is still being pushed into TikTok when it might not be here next year. You know, I think that's the other thing that is going to be interesting, especially living in 2020, 2024. I will be interested to see what 2025 is going to look like, because honestly, I don't, the future's not looking very bright at this current moment. The future's not looking very bright, not for Americans. But, hopefully something changes, something does better. But either way, TikTok is that longevity is in question. So I'm also curious as to what people are going to do. I was like, is it just going to default back to, YouTube and Bookstagram as it was? Is there going to be a new platform? I know there have been several new bookish platforms that are trying to like pop up in the space or whatever. But I would be interested to see if they are actually successful in doing that and how that's going to work, because ultimately the hardest thing about being a successful author is selling your book and getting it in front of people. TikTok changed that for a lot of people, but also TikTok's algorithm is changing and it's becoming more of a competitor for YouTube because they're trying to break into longer videos and such. But it's also like, if that platform isn't there, if it doesn't exist, Reels and Shorts just don't do what TikTok does. So I don't know. I think it's interesting to continue to push money into it when it's unlike there's no stability or longevity in it. I feel like it would be more of a safe bet to put money into a YouTuber than it would be into a TikToker. But that's just me. That's my personal mindset. But also, I'm not a book influencer, which is crazy. I feel like more of an author influencer than a book influencer. But I don't even know. I just be on the internet talking. That's it. I don't even know what I do at this point. I just be existing. But let's see here. It's so fascinating to me how hyper-focused authors are on getting people ages 18 and 21 to buy books. They have the least amount of spending money, especially if they're in college. The least amount of spending money and the least amount of free time to read books. And I feel like it's interesting, right? Because even though so I say that as an author who writes currently in that age range. Like my protagonists are like 19, 20, right? But part of that is because when I created these stories and the journeys that they were going on, I was closer to that age range myself. And so I was writing books for myself. But when I think about the books that I plan to write in the future, they are older protagonists, because it's just like I'm not at that life stage, that age range anymore. And I feel like there are so many authors who, I don't want to say who are afraid to grow up, who are afraid to age, but I feel like that is like, aging is such a terrible thing in our society, in our culture, where it's just like, how dare you writing a book about an older protagonist? Nobody wants to read that. And it's like, yes, no. In fact, would like to point out that people do not just die once they hit 30. Like, they do continue to exist and be interesting. So I don't know. I feel like it's the obsession is, it's crazy. It's weird. I don't know. Like, the adult market should be the largest market instead of the YA one. But it's just like, it's crazy because it's like a known fact that the YA market is full of people who just never left young adult when they should have, And that's kind of the disturbing part. Like, it's okay to age out of young adult. It's okay to read adult fiction. And I think the only reason why adult doesn't get the same kind of love is because heavier topics can be included, keyword being can. And I think people just automatically assume that all adult books are going to be so much heavier than what they read in YA. And I don't know. I mean, it's like, I think it's a possibility, but I also think like it doesn't have to be that way. If if you just have to find the right books. I feel like that's with any book. You just have to see if it works for you, you know? Um, let's see here. Uh, when I was YA, aka when I was that age. Yep. Yep. I'm tired of seeing the no trauma marketing. It's getting really weird because I saw it recently in a historical fiction set in the Deep South. You know, I will say this. I think people are just straight up lying to sell to sell books because there's no way. There's no way. And I think here's the other thing that I think we have to keep in mind is that generally speaking, making a very broad statement, right? Um, the trends in books tend to go opposite of whatever is happening in real life. So when things are like good and easy going and smooth sailing, that's when you get people writing like dystopian and dark fantasy and things like that, right? But when the world starts to get really dark as we are in 2024, that's when people want the lighthearted and the fluffy and the quote unquote escape, right? And so I think we're in this weird mishmash era of people want to write like historical fiction or they want to tell their stories, but they're also like, I don't want to deal with these heavy topics because the world is already too heavy. And so they want to write about heavy topics, but leave out the weight of it. And that just kind of makes it feel empty. And that makes it feel like, well, what's the point? And then it also feels like lies because for whatever reason, we're also at a point where people, like you have said multiple times, Bina, people read fiction in order to gain information, like facts. And I'm just kind of like, there's a whole genre for that. It's called nonfiction. If you are reading to learn something factual. So it's just, I think we're in a weird space in like the timeline. Unfortunately, where it's just like people, and then also with the popularity of Bridgerton, I think so many people are just like, oh, I want to see people with very carefully curated social norms and pretty dresses interacting with each other. And it's just kind of like, that's cool to want that. But I think for me, in the way that I think, right, I feel like trying to set those things up in a, not contemporary, but in a, I say, what's the word? I don't know, realistic setting, in a real world setting. I feel like that's where the issue comes in. Like, if you want those things, set it up in an alternate history, set it up in a fantasy timeline, set it up so that the things that you want to do make sense. But I also feel like that takes more work and that requires tapping into a different market. But it's like people really want to tap into the historical fiction market, but also they don't want to include the things that are expected in historical fiction. And I feel like that is can kind of go for all the genres, right? Like, there's so there's so many tropes and expectations and rules and guidelines for uh each genre that are just getting completely disregarded in the face of I just want to do X, Y, and Z. And it's just like no one's saying that you can't, but also maybe not call it this thing that you've been calling it, you know? Like, I don't know, and mashing things together that probably shouldn't be together, like a horror and a romance. I don't know why those two things need to be in the same book at the same time, but go off, I guess. Um, but yeah, okay, yeah, I'm trying to catch up on the chat. Hold on. Let's see here. I think it's the quicker turnaround on investment with TikTok thereafter. Mm, that's a thought. That's a thought. I feel like TikTok is quick, but I also feel like anything that goes viral is quick. Like, if you go viral on Instagram or Twitter or YouTube, whatever, I feel like it's just the virality that they're chasing, and TikTok doesn't have to be that. I think the only thing TikTok has going for it is that it's shorter. So it's easier to get more views in a short amount of time, but I don't think that actually means anything on TikTok necessarily. I think the main thing about TikTok is just that the audience on TikTok will actually buy a book, whereas Instagram, part of the reason I don't waste my time marketing on Instagram is because people on Instagram don't buy books. They don't spend money. If you're on Instagram, most of the audience there don't actually spend money on things. They just enjoy looking at it, right? And they wait for a longer review from somebody else, but they don't actually invest in the thing. I feel like YouTube might, but TikTok I feel like is the only audience that I personally have interacted with. where it's just like, no, if people want something or see something that they like, they will actually go get the thing. So it could be that, and that could be why they're investing in TikTok. But I also feel like that's more so of a mindset shift versus a platform thing. And I think it's about how people of a certain generation get their information. I think it's more so about not millennials, what is it? Gen Z and younger actually being on the app and being willing to purchase things because, they're not locked down by crippling student debt. You're right. And they've been working since they were like 10. But I digress. They're willing to buy things versus like millennials and like who's before millennials? Gen X? Whatever. I don't know. They don't buy stuff. They don't actually buy stuff that they see on the internet. Which I think is interesting. Let's see here. I feel like 1920 is the average age for fantasy main characters, but I would like to see more older protagonists, or at least have these young protagonists who are supposed to be street savvy actually be it. I think the main thing with this particular topic, right? A lot of people don't actually write interesting characters. A lot of people are not actually good at character development. They're good at an idea, they're good at vibes, they're good at the idea of their character having a backstory, but they are not good at displaying how they're not good at writing fully developed characters where that backstory influences their actions. And the reason I say that is because part of the reason why I don't vibe with a lot of books is because if you tell me something about a character, I'm going to expect that thing to color how they interact with their world, right? So it's just kind of like if your character comes from like, let's say, I read We Deserve Monuments, right? And she's got a black mom and a white dad, but then she moves to her mom's hometown, which is in and it's very deep south, right? So there she's literally caught in like two worlds at times, right? And it's just kind of like, okay, cool, but how she interacts with that world is informed by the fact that she grew up in a space in an area where those that having being biracial didn't really color anything. So moving into a space where it was suddenly she was made very aware of it. It's just like, okay, that changed how she interacted with things and how she perceived things. It's like, okay, cool. But I'm trying to be nice about this, but I don't know how to put it other than, yeah, Tatiana said, be a better writer, like be better at your craft. I think the other thing, and this is going to sound so mean and so shady, but I honestly just mean it in just an objective way. I think Trap Pub picks up a lot of authors who are not actually good. They're just marketable. And so we get a lot of books that are okay, but they're not actually good. And then you have a lot of people looking at it like, oh, this is the author that made it. And then they're mimicking things that are good and not great. And then that kind of brings down the quality of all the books, like collectively at the same time. Because here's the thing. Part of the reason why I talk about Bones to the Wind so heavily is because there are two main characters, Raja and Nico. But the thing is, they come from different backgrounds, but those backgrounds 100% interact how they deal with the world. But then on top of that, they are still forced to interact with each other, and you see their ideals and how they deal with things clash constantly. And there isn't this sudden, oh, we're best friends kind of vibe, because I also feel like that's something else that gets pushed a lot in these books, where it's just like your character isn't interesting. And I'm trying to be nice about this, but you know what? Forget it. I'm by myself today, so. So Children of Blood and Bone, right? Part of the reason why I personally have never vibed with that book as much as I probably wanted to, and this is no shade to anyone who loves the book, right, or the series, especially since the third book just came out, right? We support a Black woman. We do. But part of the reason why I did not love that book is because in the very beginning, right, the very beginning, first page, first chapter, right, the main character Zaylee is saving a princess, and there was absolutely no reason for her to do that. Like, none. None. It's just like the whole book, she's angry. She's angry, and she's like, this family, these people, these group of people killed my mother, destroyed my family. Literally, the summary of the book is they took our magic and they tried to bury us, but still we rise, right? Or something to the effect of that. So if that is the summary of the book, and this is the character who has lost her mother, who has lost her magic, who has been oppressed, why then in the first chapter is she saving her oppressor and then going on an adventure with her? That doesn't make any sense. And to me, and I don't know if this is a controversial take or not, but to me, that's not great writing. That is convenient writing. That is this thing needs to happen for the plot, and these characters become friends because reasons. And I think you have a lot of authors who are imitating that, where it's just like, we have this super talented, has killed a bunch of people assassin, right? But when we get into the actual heart of the story, that all that happened off page. When we get to the heart of the story, she cries a lot. And she doesn't actually fight anybody, and she has to be defended by the super strong guys who show up, because she has to have at least 2 love interests, right? Like, why did you tell me she's an assassin? She could have been a librarian for as much as she's doing at this point. So what was the purpose of telling me that? Why are you going to tell me that someone's a fighter and then they don't fight? Why would you tell someone's a bakery owner and they don't never bake a cake? Why give me any of this information and it's not relevant to anything that they do? And I'm not just talking about their actions. I'm talking about the way that they think. Like, if you have a character who comes from multiple generations of divorced parents, why are you having them just like fall in love and be like, yeah, you're the love of my life, my one true soulmate, we're going to get married and be together forever? That doesn't make any sense. If they've never seen it, if they've never interacted with it, why would they think this way? Like, I challenge that. I don't accept it. I don't accept it. Let's see here. Also, Uncle Bucket is here. Hello. Welcome, love. Glad to see you. Let's see here. I personally submitted my book to 70 agents. Oh, wow. Every one of them said they liked it, but not enough to champion it. So I'm self-publishing. And I think that's another whole conversation, because what does that mean? How do you write a good book? And then someone's like, great, but I don't think I could be the one to like stand behind it 10 toes down. What does that mean? Like, you're like, cool, I'm glad I got to read it, but I don't think anybody else would want to read it. Is that what you're saying? Are you saying that? But I feel like that's a very nice way of saying, I don't know anyone who would buy this, and I'm not going to find someone who's going to buy it, you know? And I feel like that is a whole other conversation to be talked about, because that feeds into just giving publishing what it's asking for, which is why there isn't as much diversity and readers aren't getting what they're asking for, you know? I would say millennials are heavily buying things they see online, and unlike Gen Z, they have more income. A lot of Gen Z are fresh out of college, struggling to find jobs. That's fair. I think I don't know. I don't know the demographics. I just know that when I see like email newsletters from like marketing like newsletters or whatever, they're like, hey, this is the demographic of people that are actually buying things. And I think even though there are a lot of Gen Z who are coming out of college, I think there's a larger demographic of them who either didn't go or don't have student loans or have support. So I don't know how that's working. I just know that the emails that I have gotten have said that they are the target demographic when you're trying to sell something. So I don't know. Take that with a grain of salt, I guess. And Gen Z brags about pirating books all the time. I think everybody goes through an era of pirating books. I don't know. I think it depends on your financial situation. I'm not going to say I've never done it. I don't do it anymore, but I'm not going to say I've never done it. Okay, I can't read this comment online, but Uncle Bucket, I agree with you. And I think it's interesting, especially when it's like, regarding to like what you have to put in a book in order to get published, I think it's interesting that a lot of authors who write these things, they themselves will admit that they get bored of it, but they keep writing it because that is what people want to read. And after a certain point, they feel like they get locked into that expectation of what people want to read when they pick up a book by them. And I'm just like, wow, that's crazy. But it's just like, I can't even be mad at them because, I mean, again, we live in 2024 and things are changing. So I guess, you know what? Get your books where you can, I guess. I guess. Um, let's see here. I'm dead. Side characters are more interesting than the main character. Um, I'm I'm gonna leave that's where it's at. Because y'all know I'm harsh on books. I'm really hard on books. And I know this about myself. I do. I just I have it's very rare for me to pick up a book and be like, "Oh, this is really good and I'm really enjoying it and I want more books like this." And I feel like the longer I live, the less enjoyable I find books. Like I want them to be better. I just want them to be better. I want them to be interesting. I want the main characters to do more. I think I'm also personally in an era where I want the flex. I'm really, 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 really exceptionally sick of reading a book about specifically a Black female main character with magical powers who never uses them. I get to a point where I'm just like, you know what? This can just go. This can go back to wherever it came from because I don't know who lied. I don't know who said that was interesting, but it's not. I don't want to read it's not Black girl magic if she can't use her magic. That's not interesting. If we are not trying to solve problems with magic, why are you putting magic in the book? Like, what was your purpose? What was the reason? If we still have to adhere to conventional norms, why give this person magic at all? Like, I don't know. And I feel like there's this conversation where it's always like, well, Black girls aren't allowed to be morally gray. And I'm like, well, y'all aren't challenging them y'all are not writing these characters to be morally gray. You're writing them to be very, very, very boring. Like, I don't know. I will say this in the last we're in 2024. In the last 4 years, the only book with a Black girl main character that I thought was really like, oh, worth championing was Raja. Like, outside of my own books, like Raja from Bones to the Wind. That's why I talk about it so heavily. It was the only book that I have read recently where I was just like, oh, I absolutely love this Black girl. And I love how she's complex and I love how she is both strong, but she also has her social issues. And I love how Nico was like, oh, she's got all this power, but she has to be mindful of how she uses it. And there are actual limitations to it. And everybody doesn't love her just because she's the darling of of their little society or whatever. Like, there's just so much that I enjoyed in that book that I'm just like, I want more books like this. And because it's just like, I try really hard to read books and give them a try. And then I'm just like, oh, we got this trope again? Fun. Exciting. Thrilling, even. Let me go put this back on the shelf. I think a lot of authors who are selling to adult sci-fi fantasy imprints right now are used to the YA space and they're still holding on, really taking it there. You know what? I think here's my unpopular opinion, right? I don't even think that it's about, the YA space and taking it there. I think it's about fun. I think it's about enjoyment. I think it's about writing characters that we haven't seen on the page before. I think I think we are in this era, especially like you can see it a lot in like television and movies where everything is just like a regurgitation of a regurgitation of a regurgitation to the point that you don't even know what it was in the beginning anymore. And I feel like a lot of books have fallen into that trap as well, where it's just like, it's this idea or this trope, and it's just regurgitated to the point that there's not a plot, there's not a story, there's not a purpose, there's no challenging, there's no anything in it other than the craft itself, the very minuscule part of a book where it's like the craft of writing is solid, right? Like they know how to write sentences. It's just not interesting. It's just not good. It's just not fun. It's just not. I haven't come across a book lately where I'm like, I want to actually buy this book because I know that I'm going to want to read it more than once. I don't think we exist in that era of media anymore. I don't think authors are writing books that people really want to read more than one time, where it's just like, oh, I enjoyed this world, I enjoyed this character, I'm going to come back to it. I think we are so caught up in oh, I read it, I bought it to support the author. I don't even think people are actually reading. I think there's a large subset of people who just start skimming after a certain point because they're like, yeah, I get it. And then they're just moving on to the interesting parts. Because I know there are certain books where I have gotten it, I was like, I'm trying to give this a try. And I just started flipping pages to be like, okay, do we get to a flex? Do we get to something good? Do we get to something worth rooting for? And we don't. And I'm just like, you know what? Forget it. I'm taking this book back to the store. I'm not. And books are way too expensive for them to not be good, like as good as they need to be. Like I'm not spending $25, $30 on a hardback for it to not be good. I am getting my $30 back. I will buy another book, but I'm getting my money back. That's too expensive to sit on the shelf and be pretty. It is too expensive to sit on the shelf and be pretty and not read. But yeah, let's see here. Companies always target the younger demographics. When I was studying marketing years ago, everything was being targeted toward the younger millennials, which is dumb. They ain't got no money. They can't buy nothing. Okay. But yeah, the main character can't be underpowered and she can't be too overpowered. And that's the issue. And that is also something that I'm like, I don't think I'm ever going to adhere to that in my own books, like ever. My characters are definitely going to be overpowered. And I think that's something that I need to make clear, because one of the comments that I got for We Are the Origin was that the reader said they didn't feel like Brandy's life in particular was ever like at risk or whatever. And I was like, because it wasn't. Like she's got protagonist powers, love. Like she's flexing on everybody. That's the point of the book. That's the point. The black girl is not going to die in this one. I hate to break it to you, but I also feel like people are like, oh, if you are writing a black girl main character, she has to be under duress. If like that's the thing. And I'm like, no, everyone else is under duress maybe, but not her. No, not her. Not when she's got the literal powers of the goddess. Not when she is who she is. Like, no, I'm not writing this character with a great cosmic power in itty bitty living space. No. She's good. And every book that I write, you can trust and believe that my characters are going to be that way, because that is what I enjoy. If I'm going to give a black woman all the powers that I want to in my fantasy world, and she's going to stand at the top of this hierarchical societal food chain, my book is not about to be about humbling her. It's not gonna be about making anybody else comfortable either. It's literally going to be about having a good time and her using her powers the way that she thinks that they should be used. That's it. And I feel like there's a space for more characters to use their power the way that they think that they should be used, because a really good example of this, I think, is like The Boys. I don't even like The Boys. I only watched the first season. But even just the idea of this character having all of this power and not being on the same moral scale that it seems like everybody wants him to be on. It's like, that's what makes it interesting. When you have superheroes who are people and make mistakes and then don't own up to them, right? That's kind of why you get into it. I think it's the same reason why Invincible is also really good, because it's just like there are consequences to these actions. And I don't know. I feel like there is a space and a market for, if you're going to write fantasy, to not make them perfect, to not have them do the right thing just to do the right thing. That is honestly the fastest way to get me to get rid of anything, to stop reading it, to stop watching it, to stop engaging with it. If you have a character who's doing the right thing just to do the right thing, I'm done. I'm leaving. I quit. I'm not here. Like, I don't believe in this you were just born with this super extra straight and narrow moral scale. You have to have a reason to be that way. It has to be a choice. But that's just me. But yeah, we're the morally gray characters. And their morally gray characters be filled with rainbows and sunshine. Look, man, I I would just like to see somebody with an attitude in a book. Like literally anybody. Or someone I keep going back to it, but literally Bones to the Wind. Raja's great. She can do anything that she sets her mind to. Literally can do anything. She is the flex. The entire series. She is the flex. But you know what? At that same time, she ain't got no friends. Like she's socially awkward because she's like, I'm great. Why doesn't everybody else realize how great I am? And it's hilarious, but it's also like that is her obstacle. And I feel like so many authors are afraid to give their characters genuine obstacles other than why doesn't this person like me? Like cute, but babes, if we're doing a fantasy, can we focus on something else for a minute? Can we move along? Can we I'd be tired. I'd be tired, y'all. And I just be wanting to read books that are interesting. That is just like, oh, we have like if it's a romantasy, I need the fantasy part to actually be plotting, to have actually something be happening. But yeah. Also Margaret is here. Hello. Welcome. I'm sorry I didn't say hello earlier. Welcome, love. And let's see here. There's always a Disney reference. There's always a Disney reference. That's who I am. Disney or anime. Like why go high when the characters can go lower? So much lower. Look, Darian, me and you, we're on the same page. We're on the same page because I get it. But also I would just like to see somebody burn some stuff down. I would just like to see somebody fight. I would like to see somebody be like, you know what? I'm done. I would like to see somebody get their comeuppance, right? That's it. And I'm not saying it has to be all the time. I just don't want it to be in the final act of the third book of a series where I had to get through a literal 1,000 pages of this character just putting up with nonsense the entire time to just get one solid moment. Like, no. Why are we putting up with this? Why are we just rolling with this? Who said this was a good idea? Who said that? Wait, actually, I do know who said to turn the other cheek, so I'm gonna leave that one off. But the point is, God said to turn the other cheek, but he was also flipping tables at the synagogue. So I'm just saying, I would just like to get to the flipping tables point. That's it. Anyway, Chelsea would like to see someone with an attitude. Is that a newsflash? It is not. I just want more people to listen to me and deliver. That's it. I do think there's a balance where people like to feel like the main character has to actually have difficulty battling the villain. You know what, Vina? I think you're right. But you know what this goes back to? I think they should write better villains. I think all the way around, it should just be better. Because here's the thing. Defeating your villain shouldn't just be like, oh, because of X, Y, and Z. If you can defeat the villain too easily, that means that your character doesn't have sufficient motivation to defeat them, or you haven't actually set up a reason, an obstacle that makes sense for your book, because they should inherently be two opposing sides and not just like, oh, I just want to kill this person and I have all of this power and now I'm going to go kill them. Like, if there has to be a reason, like, why are they untouchable? Like, and it needs to be more than your own social moral compass, because I feel like if that's not challenged, the whole purpose of a book is for a character to be challenged. And if they're not challenged, they don't grow. And if they don't grow, then there's no reason for them to defeat the villain. The villain is supposed to be a paragon of the exact opposite of what they believe. And they need to get to a point where it's just like, what are you willing to do to solve the problem? And if your main character can defeat the villain from the first page, either you didn't write a good character or you didn't write a good villain. But it's not because your character isn't powered up enough. It's usually because your villain doesn't have a good enough reason to be and have the power that they do. So like, if you're going to have a villain who's like, oh, I have this entire army of people behind me, why are they following this villain? Why are they taking orders from them? Especially if they're cruel, especially if they're super powerful. There needs to be reasons behind things. That's all. And I think people get comfortable with writing familiar villains. Like they write Dr. Doofenshmirtz and then they're just like, oh, well, how am I supposed to make this character defeat him but not in the first page? I don't know. Maybe write a better character. Like Perry the Platypus was always fighting Dr. Doofenshmirtz. Sure, he wins, but like he comes back. If that's what you're going for, then cool. Have a balance, have a trope, lean into it. But if you're like, oh, this character needs to defeat the ultimate evil, well, why is the ultimate evil, and why are they trying to defeat it? Why are they the chosen one? I feel like that's another thing that should be discussed a little bit more. Like, why is your chosen one the chosen one? Like, I'm all for you were born the chosen one or prophecy or whatever, but also why are we just going along with this? I would like more reluctant chosen ones. There are a lot of things that I want. I'm gonna get off of this soapbox, but just know that I'm very unhappy. And I feel like there's so many aspects of writing and storytelling that are just not being tapped into. And it's a lot of what we're getting is just boring, personally, in my personal opinion. Also, shout out to Jeanette Geller, who came in. Hello, welcome. Let's see here. Okay, I have a couple questions. Let's see here. You don't see that in dark romance. I know I have some serious attitude characters in my stories. The thing, I don't read a lot of dark romance, so I will add that caveat in there. I'm talking mostly about whatchamacallit, mostly about fantasy, specifically the fantasy that is marketed as, oh, we've got black girl magic. And generally any type of fantasy with any type of YA protagonist, it's usually, oh, they've got attitude and then they don't. And it's just kind of disappointing. But yeah, let's see here. What do you think of these of the obstacle being internal? Sometimes it feels not enough, sometimes it's banger. I'm cool with the obstacle being internal as long as the obstacle is actually addressed at some point in the story. I feel like when obstacles are internal, it's always solved by finding a love interest. And I just don't subscribe to that either. I feel like if your obstacle is going to be, okay, I need to kill this person who murdered my family, but I've never killed anyone. I feel like the obstacle should be getting over murder. It shouldn't be, I should forgive this person for murdering my family. Like, that's how I feel. I would like to see the problem be solved in a realistic way. I don't want it to be like, oh, forgiveness and love and happiness, and I am now dating the killer's daughter because she's pretty. Like, no, that's not the solution to the problem in my eyes. But if that's what it is, that's what it is. Also, shout out to JK who came in. Hello, welcome, love. Also, Steve is here as well. Hello, welcome. But yeah, let's see here. I'm desperate for authors to step outside of their moral comfort zone, and I'm equally desperate for readers not to assume authors are into the awful stuff they write. You know, there's this. I'm going to say this, and I'm also going to remind you guys to sign up for the after chat if you haven't already. It supports the Melanin Library, and it's a chat after the chat, right? And we're coming up on an hour. But as far as there's this trend of readers not reading or not comprehending or not processing things, and I'm like, there's this phrase that I've been seeing on the internet, like, please open up the schools, and I'm just like, yeah. There's this, I don't know, I feel like books are getting closer and closer to becoming Dora the Explorer, where it's just straight up told to you what things mean, and the entire the ability to read between the lines and gather context within things is being lost. Like, and it's just kind of like, there's no reason why an author should have to tell you that, hey, I'm including these things in the book, but I don't necessarily believe these things. Like, there's this conversation on Twitter about how authors, and maybe it was the after chat too, I don't know, I be confusing stuff sometimes, but there's this whole conversation talking about how basically every female character has to be a girl's girl, even if they're the villain or whatever. And I'm like, that's crazy. No. And one of the books that I read and really enjoyed is it was a while ago. It was Christina Forrest's Now That I Found You, right? And it's a YA book, a YA romance specifically. And basically the very beginning of the book, you have literally someone, you have the main character being the victim of someone not being a girl's girl, and she was set up. Like, her friend was like, I need to get ahead, and this is how I'm going to do. I'm going to ruin your career because I need this opportunity more than you because you have nepotism working in your favor. Boom. Okay, it is what it is. She's not a girl's girl, but that's fine. I think it's the fact that everyone thinks that you have to explain things, and I'm like, babes, it's okay to rub both of your brain cells together at the same time. It's fine. But I don't know. I don't read a lot of YA. Yeah, I'm getting out of it, honestly. Honestly, mostly because this whole conversation hasn't been that great. Hasn't been that great. Let's see here. Reluctant as in he was told he needed to go one way. He was like, nah, and went the other way. Okay, I think I missed some context. But let's see here. Janet said, I write mostly enemies to lovers, adult romantic suspense thriller. So lots of violence and dark elements. Ooh, that sounds pretty cool. I like it. So Uncle Bucket said, what's the after chat? I've been working 12-hour shifts and have been out of the loop for a long time. No worries. Welcome back. I hope you get some rest. So for those of you who don't know, the after chat is the chat after the chat that happens in our private Discord server. If you join the Patreon, $5 gets you in. It supports the Melanin Library. It supports this channel. And it helps support Black authors and what I do on the podcast. So if you are interested in supporting Black authors in real time, $5 gets you into the after chat. And basically we continue to chat here. But in case you guys didn't know, my mother-in-law watches these. And so I try to keep it PG-13 on the YouTube channel. I am a different person offline. So if you would like to join the conversation off of the YouTubes, that is where the conversation happens. And also, the Melanin Chat is once every other Tuesday. We talk all throughout the week in between Melanin Chats in the after chat. So if you join, you get access to the conversation in like real time. So feel free to join, like I said, the Patreon. Join the Patreon. It's $5 to get into the after chat. If you want to go higher than that, you're more than welcome to. And yeah, we're fun. We hang out, and you also get first dibs on new information. And like Ben said, the after chat is unfiltered. That's mainly the main thing. So yeah. Feel free to join. Also, before I forget, I do want to make an announcement. If you're part of the after chat, you already knew this, but I can make it a public announcement now. The Melanin Library is putting together an anthology, a Black fantasy anthology. So if you guys are interested in that, in either reading and or being a part of it, I will be posting the forms for it, the sign-up forms for it, next week on July 8th. So the anthology is going to be called Magic in the Melanin. Good Lord. Magic in the Melanin anthology. It's going to be an anthology, and the entire thing is put together by Black authors, and the purpose of it is to support the Melanin Library so that it can continue to remain a free resource. So if you didn't know, the Melanin Library is an online website where you can go and find books by Black authors sorted by age range and genre. We are working on getting an update, so expect some new things from the website in hopefully the very near future. But the anthology itself, like I said, it's going to be an adult/new adult anthology, so a 17+ audience. And it's going to be Black fantasy with Black characters written by Black authors. And the main thing is that there is no racial trauma in the book, which I'm really excited about. So far, we have Kimberly Lemming and El Penelope, who have written stories and who have committed to being in the anthology. And we're going to be opening up submissions next week. So if you are a Black author who writes fantasy, or if you know a Black author who writes fantasy who will be interested in the anthology, please let them know. I think it's gonna be great. I think it's gonna be fun. Like, the story so far, great. Oh, also, I guess I should mention that I wrote a story for it. Tatiana wrote a story for it. And also we have La Purvis and Celeste Hart, who also wrote stories for it. So I think it's gonna be great. I don't have a link down in the description of this video because it's not ready yet, but There will be one in the next chat, and if you join the after chat, you'll get the link to it first. So I'm excited about it. We are working on a cover. We have a couple of sketches, and yeah, I think it's gonna be great. As we were talking about, as we were putting the anthology together, I can't think of like any pure like black adult fantasy anthologies. So we're really excited to put this together. And also the authors are great, y'all. These stories are fantastic. I mean, I like mine also, but like the other stories, they're great. They're great. So like I said, if you're interested in either supporting the anthology or writing a story for it, there will be links. So make sure you're subscribed to the channel so that you don't miss when I make that announcement. And yeah, that's it. I didn't want to forget. I didn't want to forget to tell you guys about that. But yeah, that being said, it's after 11 o'clock. So moving over to the after chat. So again, go ahead and join, tap the like button if you haven't already. And thank you guys so much for being here. I will be back in not next week, but the week after that. And yeah, that's it. So thank you guys for being here. And until next time, I hope your days are lovely and your books are full of melanin. Bye.